Welcome to our YouTube channel Make Science Easy with Dr. KMC. Today we are going to see an interesting topic of today's event everywhere. It's called disaster and management. So what is disaster? A disaster is an extreme disruption of the functioning of a society that causes widespread human, material or environmental losses that exceed the ability of the affected society to cope with its own resources. See, the disasters are sometimes classified according to whether they are natural disasters or human-made disasters. For example, disasters caused by flood, drought, tidal waves and earth tremors are generally considered natural disasters. Disasters caused by chemical or industrial accidents, environmental pollution, transport accidents and political unrest are classified as human-made. The disaster are otherwise called the human-induced disaster, since they are the direct result of the human action. The word the disaster derives from Middle French the disaster, and that from Old Italian disastro, which in turn comes from the Greek prefix. The root of the word disaster, that means bad star in Greek and Latin, comes from an astrological theme in which the accidents are ancients used to refer to the destruction or the deconstruction of a star as a disaster. Let us see the definition. So what is mean by the disaster? Disaster is an event or series of events which gives rise to casualties and damage or loss of the properties, infrastructure, environment, essential services or means of the livelihood on such a scale which is beyond the normal capacity of the affected community to cope with. So here the disaster is also sometimes described as the catastrophic situation in which the normal pattern of life or ecosystem has been disrupted or extraordinary. The emergency interventions are required to save and preserve lives or the environment. The Disaster Management Act 2005 defines disaster as a catastrophe, mishap, calamity or grave occurrence in any area arising from natural or man-made causes or by accident or negligence, which altogether results in substantial loss of life or human suffering or damage to and destruction of the property or damage to or degradation of environment, and is if such a nature or a magnitude as to beyond the coping capacity of the community of the affected area. So the United Nations defines the disaster as the occurrence of sudden or major misfortunate which disrupts the basic fabric and normal functioning of the society or the community. So this disaster not new to mankind. Yes, of course, disasters are not new to mankind. They have been constant through inconvenient companions of the human beings since time immemorial. Disasters can be natural, as I mentioned, or human made. Earthquake, cyclone, hailstorm, cloudburst, landslide, soil erosion, snow, then disaster all together, which called as the natural and all sometimes the man-made the causes. So disaster management in India, flood etc. are the major the examples of the natural disasters, while fire, epidemics, road, air, the rail accidents and leakages of the chemicals, nuclear, the installations are sometimes because also the all comes and all under the category of the human made disasters. So the high power committee on the disaster management constituted in 1999 has identified 31 various disasters categorized into 5 major subgroups. So what are those 5 major groups? Number 1, water and climate related disasters, geological related disasters, chemical, industrial and nuclear related disasters, accident related disasters, and finally the biological related disasters, which includes biological and epidemics together. So altogether we have the 5 the categories are the 5 major the subgroups of the disasters so far identified by the high power the committee on disaster management in 1999. So what are the various water and climate related disasters, which includes floods and rain management, drainage management, cyclones, hurricanes, hailstorm, cloudburst, heat wave and cold wave, snow, then drought, sea erosion, thunder and lightning, and also the major one, the tsunami. And second, the geological related disasters, which includes mainly landslides and mud flows, earthquake, the dam failures, dam burst, minor fires. And third is the chemical and industrial and nuclear related, which all I think its name itself indicated by the chemical and industrial reactions, nuclear disasters. Then accident related to the disasters are all mainly the forest fire, the urban fire, the mine flooding, major building collapse, serial bomb blast, festival related disasters, electrical disasters and fires, air, road and rail accidents, and then the boat capsizing and village fire. And then the biology which related to the disasters are all mainly the pest attacks, cattle epidemics, the food poisoning, and recent one also the epidemics related to the COVID virus too. So the disaster is natural or human made or man made, whatever, are common throughout the world. So these disasters continue to occur without warning and are perceived to be an increase in their magnitude, complexity, frequency and economic impact. So these hazards pose threats to people and assume a various serious proportions in the underdeveloped countries with a dense population. So during the second half of the 20th century, more than 200 worst natural disasters occurred in different parts of the world and claimed lives of around 1.4 million people. So the losses due to natural disasters are 20 times greater in the developing countries than in the industrialized or the developed countries one. So Asia tops the list of casualties due to natural disasters. So there have been several natural as well as man-made disasters. So the records of the natural disasters can be traced way back to 430 BC, when the typhus, the epidemic was reported in Athens. So 10 the deadliest natural resources recorded in the world are dated back to 1556, when an earthquake in the Sanaxi province of the China occurred on 23rd January in 1556, and nearly 8 lakhs and 30,000 casualties were recorded. So these are the world scenario. Come to the Indian scenario. India, due to its geoclimatic and socio-economic condition, is prone to various disasters. So during the last 30 years time span of the country, that has been hit by nearly 431 major disasters, resulting into enormous loss to life and property. According to the prevention, the websites statistics telling that nearly 1,43,000 people were killed and about 150 crore were affected by various disasters in the country during these the decades. So the diseases and also have been a major cause for the disasters by the human. The disasters caused huge loss to the property and other infrastructure, costing more than nearly and 4,800 US crore in India. So in India, the cyclonic effect which occurred in 25th November 1839 had the death toll of nearly 3 lakh people. So that was the major have been accounted. The Bhuj earthquake in 2001 in Gujarat and super cyclone Orissa on 29th October 1999 are still fresh in the memory of the most of the Indians. So the most recent natural disaster of a cloudburst resulting in flash flood and mud flow in lake in Kashmir and surrounding areas in the early hours of 6th August 2010 caused severe damage in terms of human lives as well as the property. So there was a reported death toll of nearly 196 person, 69 missing person, and nearly 3,600 damaged houses and 27,000 hectares of the affected crop area. And so here the floods, earthquake, cyclone, the hailstorms, etc. are the most frequently occurring disasters in India. So during this period of 30 years in Indian subcontinent has been hit by approximately 25 major disasters apart from heat wave, cold wave and heavy winds affecting some areas of the India. So what are the vulnerability? Vulnerability profile of the India, which states that India has been vulnerable in varying degrees to a large number of natural as well as human-made disasters on account of its unique the geoclimatic and socio-economic conditions as mentioned earlier. So it is highly vulnerable to flood, drought, cyclone, earthquake, landslides and then the forest fire. Out of the 35 states and union territories in the country, nearly 27 of them are the disaster prone area. Among the almost 58.6% of the land mass is prone to earthquakes of the moderate to very high intensity. Over 40 million hectares, nearly 12% of the land mass of the India are prone to flood and river erosion of the 7,516 kilometer the long of the coastline. Close to 5,700 kilometer is prone to cyclones and to the tsunamis. 68% of the cultivable areas is vulnerable to drought and hilly areas are at risk from landslides and also the avalanches. So what are the hazardous profile? The profile of the India. So India is one of the 10 worst disaster prone countries of the world. The country is prone to disaster due to number of factors, both natural and human induced, including, as I mentioned, the geoclimatic conditions, topographic features, environmental degradation, population growth, urbanization, industrialization, non-scientific development practices, etc. So the factors either in original or by accelerating the intensity and frequency of disasters are the responsible for heavy toll of human lives and disturbing the life supporting system in the country of our great India. So the basic reason for the high vulnerability of the country to natural disaster is unique geographical and geological situations. As far as the vulnerability to this disaster is concerned, the five distinctive regions of the country. Number one, Himalayan region. Here, the alluvial plains, the hilly parts of the peninsula, and the coastal zone have their own specific problems. And then also we have the desert part of the country is affected by droughts and famine, while the coastal zone susceptible to the cyclones and storms. And second, the natural geological setting of the country itself is the primary basic reason for its increased vulnerability. The geotectonic features of the Himalayan region and adjacent the alluvial plains make the region susceptible to earthquake, landslides, water erosion, etc. And then next to that, the tectonic features of the characteristics of the Himalaya are prevalent in the alluvial plains of the Indus, Ganges, and then Brahmaputra too, as the rocks lying below the alluvial plains are just extension of the Himalayan ranges too. In addition to that, we have also the frequent floods, especially in the plains of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Comes to the western part of the country, which includes Rajasthan, Gujarat, and some parts of the Maharashtra are also hit very frequently by drought situation. If monsoon worsens, the situation spreads in other parts of the country too. The extreme weather conditions, huge quantity of ice and snow stored in the glaciers, etc., are the other natural factors which also make the country prone to the various forms of the disasters. And then altogether, the natural factors discussed in the preceding test, various human induced the activities like, as I mentioned, increasing demographic pressure and deteriorating environmental conditions, deforestation, unscientific development, the faulty agricultural practices and grazing, unplanned urbanization, construction of large dams on river channels, etc., are all together responsible for the accelerated impact and increase in the frequency of the disasters in the country. So it shows that the economic loss is accounted nearly 2% of our GDP due to disasters as per the study of the World Bank. So vulnerability to disasters and emergencies of the chemical, the biological, the radiological and nuclear origin has also increased an account of the socio-economic development. So altogether, during the last 2 decades of the 19th century, in between 1982 to 2001, the natural disasters in India had climbed a total death toll of around nearly 107,000 people, and as an average more than 5,390 death toll every year. So as mentioned above, India with its extent coastline is exposed to 5 to 6 tropical cyclones and an average both from the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal annually. So come to the climate change. I think there is evidence from the increase in the global average air and ocean temperature, precipitation and extreme rainfall, the widespread the melting of the snow and ice, storm surges, and then coastal flooding and rising of the global mean sea level as recorded in the fourth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is called the IPCC, is expected to increase the frequency and intensity of the current extreme weather events, and which gives rise to new vulnerability with differential spatial and socio-economical impacts on the humanities or the communities. So the unprecedented increase is expected to have, which have a severe impact on the what ultimately the hydrological cycle, the water resource, drought, flood, drinking water, forest ecosystems, and the sea level, coastal level, the loss, wetlands, mangroves, food security, health, and other related areas. So the impact would be particularly disastrous for the developing countries, including India, and further decade the resilience of poor, vulnerable communities, which make up between one quarter and one half of the population of the most of the Indian cities. So because of this, the disaster management, we have been accounting more on the poverty and the vulnerability, otherwise called the disaster vulnerability. Is there any relation between these two? Of course, yes. Poverty and risk to disasters are, linked and mutually reinforcing. The poor section of the society is worst affected in the cause of the disaster. The situation further aggravates due to compulsion of the poor to exploit environmental resources for their survival, increasing the risk and exposure of the society to disasters, in particular those triggered by flood, drought, and the landslides. So the type of the construction of these houses mostly in the all the prone area, which leads to a lot of the deterioration of the condition. So these dwellings made up of the low cost material without giving much consideration to technical aspect or easily targets of the various hazards. So next we would like to see the important event is the rainfall. The country is influenced by two seasons of rains, accompanied by seasonal reversal of winds from January to July. Consequent to the intense heat of the summer months, the northern India, the land mass becomes hot and draws moist winds over the oceans, causing a reversal of the winds over the region called the summer or the southwest monsoon. So this is the most important the feature controlling the Indian climate, because of about nearly 75% of the annual rainfall is received during a short span of the 4 months, that is June to September. So there is a large variation in the amounts of rainfall received at the different locations of our country. The average annual rainfall is less than 13 centimeter over the West Rajasthan, while in the Meghalaya as more than nearly 11,041 centimeter during the periods. So during the 1871 to 2009, there were 27 major droughts years in India. So one of the major reasons of these droughts have been strong link with the El Nino Southern Oscillation, we call ENSO patterns, and its linkage with the Indian food grain production. So come to the picture of the southwest monsoon. So here the rainfall over the India has a large spatial as well as the temporal variability. A homogeneous data series have been constructed for the period of nearly 1900 to 2003. The mean rainfall during July, that is 286.5 mm, is the highest and contributes about nearly 24.2% of the annual rainfall which is equal to 11,082.8 mm. So the mean rainfall during the August is slightly lower and contributes 21.2% of the annual rain. So here June and September rainfalls are almost similar and contribute 13.8% and 14.2% respectively of the annual rainfall. So the mean southwest monsoon, that is in June, July, August and September, the rainfall which accounts nearly 877.2 mm, which contributes 74.2% of the annual rainfall, which is equal to 1182.8 mm. So the cyclonic streams of the low pressure called monsoon depressions are formed in the Bay of Bengal during these seasons. So these systems generally form in the northern part of the Bay of Bengal with average frequency of about 2 to 3 per month and move in northward and northwestward the direction, bringing well distributed rainfall over the central northern parts of the country. The southwest, the monsoon generally starts withdrawing from Rajasthan by the 1st of the September and from northwest part of the India by 15th September. So it withdraws from almost all parts of the country by 15th October. So here it is replaced by a north the continental airflow called northeast monsoon. So the retreating monsoon winds causes occasional showers along the east coast of the Tamil Nadu. And we have the northeast monsoon also, and post monsoon or northeast monsoon are retreating the southwest monsoon season October, November and December, and which has a lot of the rainfall over the subdivisions of the coastal Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and south interior Karnataka and so on, which receives good amounts of rainfall accounting for almost 35% of their annual rainfall total in these months. So many parts of these regions are affected due to the storms forming in the Bay of Bengal, and that's why large scale losses to life and property occur due to heavy rainfall, strong winds, storm surges and the coastal the regions. So it causes the effects more of because of these the disasters. So India is vulnerable to extreme weather events because of this the monsoons and then its behavior. So according to the World Meteorological Organization, the data of major natural disasters extremes that occurred around the world during the period of 1963 to 2002, which all indicate that floods and droughts causes the maximum damage in India. So the floods results in the outbreak of the serious epidemics, especially the malaria and the cholera. And simultaneously, the scarcity of the water also arises in some parts of the India. So India is one of the most flood prone countries in the world. The principal reasons for the flood lie in the nature of the natural ecological systems in this country, namely the monsoons which I mentioned early, and mainly due to the high silted river streams and the steep and highly erodible the mountains, particularly those of the Himalayan regions. So lots of the losses are occurs because of this. By 1976, nearly 1/3 of the flood prone area had been afforded the reasonable protection. Considerable experience have been gained in planning, implementation and performance of the flood warning protection and control measures according to the Central Water Commission 2007. So in addition to that, we have the tropical cyclones. The major natural disaster that affects coastal regions of the India is the cyclone, and as India has the coastline of nearly 7,516 kilometers, it is naturally exposed to nearly 10% of the world's tropical cyclones. About 71% of this area is in 10 states, which includes Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, and West Bengal. So the islands of the Andaman Nicobar and Lakshadweep are also prone to the cyclones. So a lot of cases we have been, we have been accounted the incidence of the cyclonic storms with wind speeds between 65 km per hour and 107 km per hour, and severe cyclonic storm with wind speeds between 111 km per hour and 164 km per hour reaching Tamil Nadu, Andhra, which are all high during the northeast monsoon season, that is October to December, whereas the highest annual number of the storms severes occur in the Orissa, that is in the West Bengal host. So altogether the contribution and distribution of the tropical cyclones in the northern Indian Ocean mediates, which includes that the variations in the frequency of the cyclonic disturbances and tropical cyclones, but no distinct periodicity. So based on that, the annual average cyclonic disturbances in the North Indian Ocean is about 15.7% with a standard deviation of 3.1. So a severe supercyclonic storm with winds up to 250 km per hour crossed the coast of the Orissa on October 29, 1999. So this may be have a worst cyclone in our country we recorded in the Orissa region. In addition to that, we have the extreme, the positive departures from the normal maximum temperature result in the heat wave also during the summer season, and which are also having a major problem. On 10th May 2002, the maximum temperature at Vijayawada 49 to 51 degrees C was recorded. So decrease in the diurnal temperature due to urbanization is a new factor leading to human mortality and discomfort. This also one of the disasters, the events in the India. And come to the picture of the earthquake. Globally, earthquake result in a loss of about 50,000 lives every year. Earthquake over 5.5 magnitude on the Richter scale are progressively damaging to the property and human life. So however, there are many other factors that influence the damage pattern. I would like to mention that massive earthquakes generally occur near the junction of the two tectonic plates, that is along the Himalaya range, where the Indian plate goes to below the Eurasian plate. The Indian subcontinent situated on the boundaries of the two continental plates is very prone to the earthquake. Some of the most intense earthquakes in the world have occurred in India, and I would like to mention here that nearly India has been divided into 4 seismic zones, especially for the earthquake, according to the maximum intensity of earthquake expected. Of this zone, Zone 5 is the most active when comprised of the whole northeast India, the northern portion, Bihar, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, Gujarat, and Andaman Nicobar, India, I think, which have been highly the populous cities, and the constructions in these cities are not earthquake resistant. So regulatory mechanisms are weak. Thus, any earthquake striking in one of these cities would turn into a major disaster. 6 major earthquakes have struck different parts of the India over a span of nearly 15 years. So we have accounted the entire Himalayan region is considered to be vulnerable to high intensity earthquake of magnitude exceeding 8.0 on the Richter scale. So In addition to that, we have a disaster problem called the landslides. Landslides also mainly affect the Himalayan region and the western Ghats of Tamil Nadu, India. So landslides are also common in the Nilgiri range of the biospheres. So it is estimated that 30% of the world landslides occur in Himalaya and other associated regions. So here a valley in Nilgiri is called the Avalanches Valley. The Avalanches Valley, scientific observations in the North Sikkim and Garhwal regions, the Himalayas, which are all clearly stating that the major the problem of the landslides, and which are the landslides prone area. So here the landslides constitute a major natural hazard in our country, which accounts for considerable loss of life and damage to the communication routes, human settlements, agriculture fields, forest and wildlife. So based on the general experience with landslides, a rough estimate of the monetary loss is the order of nearly 100 crore to 150 crore per annum at the current prices of the country as a whole. So in addition to that, we have the industrial and chemical the disasters. So industrial disasters, which includes events that occur due to the mishap or failure in the industry and other related the activities. And last one I would like to mention is a tsunami. Tsunami and earthquake occur the centuries of energy built up within the earth. A tsunami, I think, is a Japanese word, means harbor, and nami means wave. So it's a series of water waves caused by the displacement of the large volume of the body of water, usually an ocean. So in Tamil language it is known as Ali Peralai. Ali Peralai. So the seismicity generated tsunamis are result of abrupt deformation of the sea floor, resulting vertical displacement of the overlying water. So earthquakes occurring beneath the sea level, the water above the reformed area is displaced from its equilibrium, the position, thus leads to the tsunami. So the release of the energy produces the tsunami waves, which have small amplitude but a very long wavelength. It may cause, I think, a considerable event impact on a Richter scale. So tsunami is a deep ocean which have a very long waves length of hundred of kilometers and travels at about 800 kilometers per hour at an amplitude. So the tsunamis are a great erosion potential, stripping beaches of sand, coastal vegetation, and dissipating its energy through the destruction of the houses and the coastal structures. So we have also the coastal, the road accidents, and then finally I would like to mention the pandemic situation. So it's called as earlier it was epidemics in India. So infectious diseases are a major public health problem in India, while many infectious diseases like tuberculosis and malaria are the endemic. Some of them occasionally attain the epidemic proportion. So an epidemic refers to an increase, often sudden, in the number of cases of a disease in a community, clearly in excess of what is normally expected in that population. So the epidemics breed, I think we have more problem in the Maharashtra, and then Surat in Gujarat, and then also some parts of the Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. So the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program is the key program for prevention and control of outbreak of the epidemics, malaria, the dengue, chikungunya, etc. So the vaccines are administered under the UIP, EPI, which reduce the mortality and the morbidity of the various diseases mentioned because of the epidemic due to the measles, diphtheria, and then polymyelitis, etc. So the availability of the safe water and adoption of the personal and domestic Hygienic practices are important measures to prevent control epidemics of the waterborne diseases like cholera, viral hepatitis, and then also and recently we had a bitter experience with the corona, the virus, the COVID-19. So I think we have taken care of this also comes under the disaster management. So in conclusion, yeah, part one of this a series of catastrophes across the world in recent times has served as a reminder and backdrop of the following overview, which is an attempt to capture valuable and available information across the various sectors in the disaster departments with focus on the how the management occurs in the disasters. So it is hoped that the information will definitely will serve as a tool to improve the roles and capacities of all the stakeholders while facing the hazardous risk and the resultant the disasters. In this second section of that we are going to see about the what is the evolution of the disaster management in India. Disaster management in India has evolved from an active based reactive setup to proactive institutionalized structure, from single faculty domain to multi-stakeholder setup, and from a self relief based approach to a multidimensional proactive holistic approach for reducing the risk. The beginnings of the institutional structure for disaster management can be traced to the British period itself, following the series of disasters occurred and such as the famines during 1900, 1905, 1907 and 1943, and the Bihar Nepal earthquake of 1937. So over the past century, the disaster management in India has undergone substantial changes in its composition, the nature and the policy. So it has its own history and origin. The disaster management starts from the British administration itself. During the post-independence, the task for managing disasters continued to rest with the relief commissioners in each state who functioned under the central relief commissioner, with their role limited to delegation to delegate of relief material and money in the affected areas of the disaster. So every 5-year plan addressed the flood disasters under the irrigation, command area development and flood control program. Until this stage, the disaster management structure was actively based functioning under the relief departments. So it is the origin of the disaster management, the strategies in the early periods of the British and then late after the British administration. So what is the institutional arrangement which emerged in India now? A permanent and institutional setup began in the decades 1990s with setup of disaster management cell under the Ministry of Agriculture following the declaration of the decade 1990 as the International Decade for National Disaster Reduction IDNDR by the UN General Assembly following the series of disasters occurred in the occur Latur earthquake, then Maipa landslide, Orissa super cyclone and then Bhuj earthquake. So a high area command powered committee under the chairmanship of Dr. J.C. Bant, the Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, was constituted for drawing up a systematic, comprehensive and holistic approach towards disasters. So there was a shift in policy for an approach for relief through the financial aid to a holistic one for addressing the disaster management. So consequently, the management division was shifted under the Ministry of Home Affairs in 2002 via Cabinet Secretariat notification, that is a DOC bar CD 108 bar 2002, dated 27 to 2002, and hierarchical structures for the disaster management evolved in India. So what is the organizational structure in the disaster management in India? So we have the division, disaster management division, under the head of the joint secretary level in the management. So the lot of the three directors, under secretaries, section officers, technical officers, senior economic investigator, and many consultants and supporting staff were all have been constituted to, I think, to see and monitor the disaster, the activities. So the upper structure consists of the secretary, who is the board of management, the home secretary of the minister of state in charge, and the home minister. They are the organizational setup and structure of the disaster management. So what is the framework for the disaster management? So shifting from the relief and the response mode, the disaster management in India started to address the issues, and clearly the warning system, that is the early warning system, forecasting and monitoring setup for various weather related hazards. So a structure for flow of information in the form of warnings, alerts, and updates about the oncoming hazard all emerged within the framework. So a multi-stakeholder high-powered group was set up by involving the representatives from different the ministries and the departments, and here some of these ministries were also designated as the nodal authorities for the special disaster the management in India. So following a high-powered committee reported on disaster management for establishment of a separate the institutional the structure for addressing the disasters and enhancement of a suitable law for institutionalizing the disaster management in the country. So what is the present structure of the disaster management? Here we have implemented a lot under the Ministry of the Agriculture and then the Home Affairs. The National Disaster Management Authority has been established at the center, and the SDMA at state, and disaster district authorities at district level are gradually being formalized. In addition to this, the National Crisis Management Committee, part of the early setup, also functions at the center. So the nodal ministries as identified for different the disaster type of the function under overall audience the guidance of the Ministry of Home Affairs under the nodal ministry for the disaster management. So this makes that the stakeholders interact at different levels within the disaster management framework. So within this the transitional and evolving setup, two distinct features of the institutional structures for the disaster management may be noticed. First, the structure is hierarchical and then the functional at 4 levels: center, state, district, and local level. And the cabinet committee also constituted on natural calamities, Disaster Management Act 2005. This act provides for the effective management of the disaster and for matters connected therewith or the incidental thereto. What it provides institutional mechanisms for drawing up and monitoring the implementation of the disaster management. So the act provides for setting up of a national disaster management Authority, it's called as the NDMA, under the chairmanship of the Honorable Prime Minister. State Disaster Management Authorities, we call as the SDMAs, under the chairmanship of the Chief Ministers. District Disaster Management Authorities, DDMAs, under the chairmanship of the collectors and district magistrates, deputy commissioners. And the Act further provides for the constitution of the different executive committee at national and state levels together. They function as the disaster management framework committee in the center level. So under its aegis, the National Institute of Disaster Management, NIDM, for capacity building, and National Disaster Response Force, NDRF, for response purpose have been also set up. So it also mandates the concerned ministries and departments to draw up their own plans in accordance with the national plan. In addition to that, we have a legal institutional framework also across the country, which has the vertical and horizontal hierarchical, and in the federal setup of country, which may also seen you can have the responsibility and looking for the mechanism whether it is working in place. In addition to that, we have a national level, the institutions as I mentioned, NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, was initially constituted on May 30, 2005 under the chairmanship of the Honorable Prime Minister. And then we have here the state level institutions, State Disaster Management Authority, and we have constituted, and then we have the State Executive Committee to look into the disaster management activities constituted, and then we have the district level institutions called as the District Disaster Management Authority. We know that under the aegis of the district magistrate or the district collector. And then also I think the center has developed under section 47 of the Disaster Management Act 2005, which provides the constitution of the National Disaster Mitigation Fund. So it constituted the National Disaster Mitigation Fund, and the provisions of the Act, I think, which gives the funding to all the state governments to look into the disaster management and mitigation the measures. And in addition to that, very recently a lot of initiatives have been taken in the 5-year plan. The 11th 5-year plan document of Government of India gave the impetus to the mainstreaming disaster risk reduction as one of the priority programs in the development planning process and disaster management. So building back better has become the underlying principle in any post-disaster, the reconstruction and rehabilitation program implemented by the Government of India. So as mentioned in the report of the working group on disaster management for the 11th plan, and also in the various initiatives towards this effort, the way forward can be divided in the following areas. Policy guidelines at the macro level that would perform and guide the preparation and implementation of the disaster management and development plan across the sectors, building in a culture and the preparedness of mitigation, then operational guidelines, having the robust early warning, the system, the building capacity of all stakeholders, involving community, NGO, CSO, and then addressing the gender issues, addressing the climate risk management. So altogether, they are taking very serious steps to mitigate all the disaster problems. So we have the suggested steps to achieve the result in these key identified areas. The following suggested steps should be integral to all stages of the DM, and including developing a culture of prevention by introducing disaster management in school curricula, college curricula, and also in the university curricula, and also in the professional courses, enhancing the capacity of disaster managers by strengthening training facilities for disaster management, creating mass awareness, creating more awareness. So it also has a centralized database available under the Central Statistical Organization, and integrated centralized disaster database which also requires to be developed for that or have been mentioned. So what I think they have mentioned is the early warning system and communication and connective up to the last mile. So that also have been given, because the early warning system vary for the different types of the disasters due to the recent unprecedented the devastation the unleashed by tsunami. Often early warning system gets linked with tsunami only, masking the the importance of early warning against of the other forms of the disasters. So such projects need further encouragement, and newer projects and newer project should be accorded the permission with the high the priority. So emergency operation centers also play a critical role in coordinating the emergency activity as well as in providing the information to the various stakeholders. So what altogether were required is the corporate social responsibility. The business entities are expected to shoulder the responsibilities for the impact of their activities on the consumers, employers, employees and community as a whole. Efforts are therefore needed to engage the corporate bodies in undertaking the disaster risk the reduction activities as a part of their corporate social responsibilities. NDMA and NIDM have to actively engage with the corporate sector in mainstreaming the DRR within their CSR framework. So in conclusion, to overall the above mentioned initiatives, the above mentioned initiatives are only an indicative list of actions requiring attention. So every stakeholder involved needs to contribute his or her bit in order to ensure that the increasing hazards and risks and the vulnerabilities get addressed in a planned and systematic manner, thereby increasing coping capacities of the communities at large and making them resilient to the impacts of the various disasters. So the government is continued and committed to structure and convert these requirements into the actionable format to place them on a roadmap and resource the funding for their implementation. So with this, I think I would like to thank the Government of India and for providing all the informations related to the disaster management mitigation and the roadmap and various the framework they have framed under the Act of 2005. And I think this will be definitely will be useful to all the planners, environmentalists, academicians and scientists. By knowing these things, I think we can take a major and lead role against the disasters which will happen in our ecosystem in and around us, and we will protect from the all the above the catastrophic the events, and then we will save the human life in a sustainable way. So with this, I thank the listeners for the patient hearing. Thank you one and all.